What is the first commandment and how do we keep it? I am the Lord thy God, who has taken you out from the land of Egypt, a land of bondage, a land of slavery. Thou shalt have no other God before me. This is the first commandment that we read in the Bible. For the Jews, it is a statement of declaration, a statement or a summary. The first point or the first commandment for Christians. For Christians, we find it as a commandment or a law, and this creates a misconception and misunderstanding. Because the moment we understand that this is a commandment and a law, we tend to follow it without understanding the deep essence and the meaning of the law, or what is given to us, or why it is given to us. And these laws, how do they impact our life? For the Jews, it is a statement that they should follow, a statement that has been understood, taught, and learned. For the Jews, they would theologically discuss this. They would go through this, debate, and talk about it. It is being taught from one generation to the next generation. But as Christians, we always understood it as commandments and a law. And this becomes tight. This becomes tough because whenever we hear regulation and law, the normal tendency for a human being is to always break it. But if we understand how this statement, this summary and declaration has an impact in our life, we will understand that it is more than just a law. It is more than just a commandment. Because when God said that I am the Lord thy God who has taken you out from the land of Egypt, this statement in itself shows an affection towards the reader, affection for the Israelites, affection for us today. We hear, read, or see in the movie, when God speaks, there is a loud bass voice, a husky voice. But is it so when it comes to the first commandment? God over here is not trying to command, not trying to express that authority, but He is drawing the congregation, drawing all of us to feel the affection. And He begins by telling us the Israelites have been under the bondage, under the slavery of the Egyptians. They were beaten up, they were given less food, they had to work 7 days a week. There was no resting. All they had to do was work. They never had Sabbaths, they never had breaks, they never had medical insurances. There was no medical leave. There was no personal leave. Neither there was holiday. That was the life that they had. All they had to do was rough labor. Whenever we talk about slavery, we could read a lot of books about slavery. We could watch a lot of movies about slavery, but yet we can never experience them. We do not know the actual pain that they have gone through. As much as the actors and the actress tries to portray the pain and the suffering that they are going through, we will never understand it. The Israelites have been taken away of their rights that we demand of today. Their dreams of tomorrow, their dreams of building a nation, their hopes. Many of the family, the bondage, that love that we share today have been taken away from all of them. And in fact, when generation passed by, many of the slaves did not even know or understand what their life can become of. And when we reflect this with many of us today, do you know what it is to be under slavery? Do you know what it is to be bonded and not be free? Do you understand the differences that they have gone through and what we are going through? Yes, we cannot apply the same lifestyle, the same method, and the same pain and suffering that they have gone through. But today, we encounter racism, we encounter the differences in minorities, we encounter abuse, our thoughts are not being recognized, our voices are not being heard, many people are marginalized, many poor people are being overlooked. Our healthcare system does not cover for everyone in the country. To those that have the finance and to those that do not have, the haves and do not have do not match. We go through different burdens. Our burdens of worry, we are bonded, we are stuck in worries, and our worries may differ. Yes, we have the freedom to move around, but in our freedom we are restricted. There's a restriction that you could do, whether you could move from north to south or east to west, but there is a limitation. You're bonded with worries, you're bonded with pain and suffering. Some of us are going through problems in work. You have been overlooked by your superiors, your management, or your boss, and you are suffering. You cannot leave that workplace because your salary depends on it. Your livelihood depends on it. Your paycheck is what you need. Whether you receive your paycheck every Friday, every 2 weeks, or at the end of the month, you rely on it. For those who are working on a daily wage, also rely on the same. Everyone is being enslaved some way or the other. We hear often that people talk about drugs, pornography, corruption. Those are just some of the general things that we could see. But what about our day-to-day lives? What are we stuck up with? Worry and anxiety is one of the main bondage that we are still going through, and we will continue to go through. Those worries will transform based on your day-to-day need, based on your social pressure, your peer pressure, or your family pressure. We do things according to the demand of the society, according to the norms of what has been practiced in our cultures, and we are stuck. That bondage, that freedom that we do not have, the double standard that we are facing or going through, that is the kind of bondage that many of us are going through today. And God is trying to remind us that He is a God who has not taken only the Israelites out from their slavery, from their bondage, from their sin. But for us today, He is there available to take us out from these bondages. And there is no other God. He is the only God because He loves us, because He has an affection on us. And that affection is shown in the declaration, in the summary, in the first law or in the first commandment. We often hear that thou shalt have no other gods before me. But the reason behind it is because there is an affection, and an affection that He wants for us to relate with, and an affection for us to relate with others. Are we relating the same affection that God is relating to us to others? Or are we trying to be a slave master to somebody else? How are you running your organization? How are you running your own country? How are you running your own family circle, your own community? Are you running it with affection? Are you reminded that once our forefathers was also a slave? Once our grandparents also had their own sufferings and worries? Are we trying to find a solution for them? Or we are part of the problem? Are we trying to show faith? Or are we trying to remove their faith and joy away? If we remove their faith, their hope, their dreams and desire away, we are going back to the time of slavery. We become now the master. We are not the only ones that are also being abused, but we are also abusing others. In a modern slavery, we become both the master and the slave. Back then, in the times of the Egyptian, it was clear we were only the slave. Our forefathers was in bondage in Egypt. If we recognize this affection, we should continue to live a life that shows affection, that we should not become the master of slave, that we too should give freedom to others. And in this call, we can see that this affection is so important, and it is the foundation to all the other laws to come, to all the other commandments. It is a summary, a declaration of independence, a declaration of peace. When we study in our small church group, in our theological seminar, how do we see this affection? How do we share this affection towards others? Do we continue to see that God is a God who demands? Or do we see that this is a God of affection? And this affection is what we must show to others. Because the moment when we see the first commandment, that thou shalt have no other gods before me, and we leave out the rest, we don't understand where it came from. There is a command. And when there is a command, we see here an ultimate power. We live today in a world where many of our leaders ask, demands for power. They want ultimate authority. Where did this come from? God, in His first commandment, never asked for authority, never demanded, but showed affection. If we today as leaders do the same, we will know and realize that it is important for us to show affection than ask or demand for power. And then we can see that there is no other gods before me, because God is so gracious, kind, and loving to us. And we can do the same to others. We are calling for reflection. But if that reflection is not understood in the first commandment, it will be very difficult for us to understand the remaining. May God bless you all in your weeks, in your coming days, and let us continue to live a life that God has been gracious and kind enough for us to be free, that we will be free and we will also free others, that we do not become both the master of slave and the slave to the master, but in unison, live with affection. May God bless you all.